Well, you guys all brought some really good topics. We have curiosity over here. We have ideas of stability and decision making, abundance, and also just transmission. By the way, I'm just a spokesperson. I'm not a teacher, I'm not a guru, I'm none of these things. I've done a practice that was really from my own life. So whatever transmission is the same transmission we each get to share with each other. It's just the energy of our presence. And so I think that's an important thing just to know. Yeah. And here's the trick. There's two things. One, with purpose, I don't believe that we drop into this world having signed a contract that says, this is what I'm supposed to do. But just to make it hard for myself, I'm going to hide it from myself and have to go figure it out first and then fulfill it. And if I don't, I will be miserable for the rest of my life. I will die unfulfilled. It's very silly, right? And yet we go about life as if that's the case. We struggle with decisions because we think it's life or death. What I always say whenever people ask me about how do you find your purpose, I said, what if you were just on purpose? Not have a purpose, but what if you were just on purpose? And you start moving with that, meaning you're just conscious of every movement, every choice, every decision, every interaction, connection, communication, expression, everything that you do, you're conscious of it. And the beauty in that is as you start to become conscious of it, you also become conscious of the other things that you didn't want to be conscious of, that you're like, no, I hid that away too. And as all that stuff rises to be in your presence and in your awareness, it also passes in impermanence. And then the next flame comes, and the next flame comes, and the next flame comes, and that's how we have the candlelight. We all hold these stories. Every experience that we have, every interaction, every time that something happens to us in life, we create a story out of it. We create it, we give it meaning, right? It could be something as simple as you get on the MRT and somebody looks at you and you make up a whole story of what they're thinking and what they're doing. Maybe they were judging you. Maybe they were trying to flirt with you. Maybe they saw something on your face and now you're looking and self-conscious trying to figure out what it is. And maybe they were just looking past you at the sign through the window. You see, we make up all these stories. But then we attach to the story, we identify to the story, and then the story starts to rule us. I had attached to the story that my heart was broken. Now, there was a moment in time, a moment that a trigger, an experience of hurt, pain happened. And then on that moment, I created a story and a meaning. And I kept perpetuating that, telling it to myself over and over and over until it became something I didn't know how to escape. I always share with people that the greatest lesson I learned out of that first year, I did 2 years, by the way. I did 1 year, and then 2 years later, I did it again. The greatest lesson out of that first year was that our wholeness, our completion, our everything, all that we are, isn't something that you'll ever be able to discover, because the discovery is outside of you. But it's something that you can only uncover. Meaning we can only remove the story, and then you suddenly find what's there. I would say even some of the things that you're struggling to allow to come up or to share, or even maybe there's a mentality of living an impractical, untraditional life might bring on the judgments of stories of others. All of it's still just story. So we get to uncover these stories, right? A lot of therapy, a lot of even coaching sometimes, I'm guilty of it myself. What we'll do is we'll take somebody's story that they don't like, we'll say, okay, well, what's the story you want? And then we do a little swap. But the problem with that is we haven't gotten any closer to the essence of the person. We haven't gotten any closer to the true self, to the authenticity. I like the way that Goenka puts it. Have any of you done Vipassana meditation? All right, so you'll know the reference here. Goenka, he's one of the main people that brought Vipassana meditation to the West. And he says something about how you have a fire, and in that fire you've been adding wood, right? And every wood is the experience, it's a trigger, it's a reaction normally. And so whenever we're trying to figure out how do I remove a story, how do I uncover something, it's not by adding wood, and that's what we normally do. We try to find a process, we try to find a technique, a practice, a thing. Practices, techniques, all these things, they're great for maintaining a certain way of living. They're not so much for healing because they have a premise that you're broken, and you're not. You're whole, you're fine. The only thing is you have these stories that are burning away. And because you want to understand them, because you're trying to fix them, you keep adding wood to the fire so it keeps burning so you can look at it. Another way I've put it is where it's like this moment is passing and it's there to, whether it's to teach you a lesson or it's just an experience, it goes through, and good or bad, we tend to hold it under the microscope. But it's actually just passing through. Everything in life is just passing through. This is the idea of impermanence. But we hold it. We go, oh, wait. That was kind of not a good feeling. I didn't like that. I don't want it to happen again. So let me look at it very closely, find out what happened, how it happened, and make sure it never happens again by keeping it in front of me. And then we are perpetually in the misery. But truly, everything's just on its way out. And so even those traumas of our past, the deepest things, the things we've really buried, and then started making more and more stories about, the actual trigger, the event, the experience is long past. It's not a part of you anymore. But your story is, and you are the only one that has the power to stop the story. It's kind of like, did you ever do this as a kid where you got really angry, maybe it was with your best friend, and you're like, oh, I gotta talk to you. And then like 2 hours pass, and your friend comes, are you gonna talk to me now? No. And then in your head you're going, I don't remember why though. I was angry, I know that, but I forget why. I want to play with you though. See, that's how simple it is, and yet how complicated we make it. We literally have something that happens, it creates a story, we hold on to the story, eventually we forget the story, but we remember that there was some reason that we were acting a certain way, and we keep doing the behavior, even though we forgot the story and forgot the trigger, which means it's on our own stubbornness that's keeping us. So we start to move with that by simply becoming aware. There's not a removal process. There's just be aware of it. Note it. Take notice. Be curious. When I came out of that first year in silence, the first thing that I shared was that curiosity is the character of the heart. Curiosity is the character of the heart. Because in curiosity, you're not seeking an answer. You're just inspired to ask questions. You guys hear the difference in that? You're not seeking an answer, you're inspired to ask questions. I'll give you an example. Do any of you have a question in your mind right now? Now you see, but you asked yourself a question, right? And it wasn't knowing of any answer, it just asked the question going, do I? That's a real question, that's a curious question. Most of the time with questions, we're not really asking something, we're trying to confirm something. The majority of questions are confirmations. We want to find out if whatever we're thinking is correct, or we want to know from a set of possible answers which one you select. If I say, hi, how are you? And you say, purple. That doesn't make sense because I didn't ask a question. I was looking for some set of answers that we've agreed upon. And so I love this idea of actually asking questions, truly being curious in the moment, because it means you go in with an open mind. It means you go in not trying to confirm anything, which means you're not basing anything on your stories. How many of you can note that at some point in your life, you were asking questions of another, trying to confirm your story about the situation? Even though you probably didn't like the situation. And maybe the other person or the experience or even the scenario was offering a different possibility than your story, but you still wanted the answer that you were asking the question for. That's that problem where we try to be right or wrong. Easiest way to stop trying to be right. Realize that if you're right, then you're trying to make everybody else wrong. And is that how you want to interact with people? So life's not about right or wrong, it's about what's the truth in this moment, regardless. And half the time that makes everybody right.
What if you want to create a story that you love?
in terms of like manifesting or moving towards the future you want?
That also, but just a version of the story that you like, just because it makes life a little more interesting than emptiness.
And what's scary about emptiness? What's scary about reality as it is?
It's not scary, it's just more interesting to have a story.
As long as you can be conscious that it's a story, sure, why not? That's what I was saying earlier about if you can be on purpose about it, and you know you're making up a story, and you have your own reason, great, go for it. Most people don't know they've made up a story. And a lot of people will make up a story and then forget they made up a story. And so my invitation is rather, instead of looking to apply some flavor to your reality, see it for what it is. A lot of times if somebody says that they're bored, I always think this is hilarious because people will say, I'm bored, there's nothing to do. I said, close your eyes, go silent for a moment. Spend 10 minutes like that and then tell me if you're still bored. There is so much happening all the time. I think the only time we're bored or we want to add something is because we haven't become still enough to notice what's there already. There's so much happening. And even within that, there is so much beauty and radiance and abundance in what's happening that we're normally not taking note of. Have any of you ever done a fasting or detox or anything like that? And then you ate food again, or you ate the thing that you weren't eating, and it was so much more potent, right? It was always that potent. It always had that flavor. Your senses weren't as aware, though. On this idea of abundance that you had asked about, I think there's an interesting distinction between true abundance, like abundance in tangible goods in our material life and world, and an abundance mindset. And the same holds for scarcity. Those who are truly scarce in life, that have very, very little, you normally find that they're happier, more generous, more giving, more connected, more realistic, less stressed. Than those who have a lot but have a scarcity mindset. Because the mindset, no matter what you do, you can't ever have enough. And that's a pretty helpless position to be in. That's pretty stressful. And so abundance, when you can start to look at it as, what do I have and what can I do with already what I have? Instead of trying to figure out what am I not having. It's like you go to the fridge and maybe you haven't done your grocery shopping that week and you're hungry. And so there's a drive, there's a desire, right? Do you open the fridge and go, I don't have that thing, that exact thing that I want, that I saw my neighbor or my friend eating, so I feel scarce and I just won't eat? Or do you make do with what you have? You figure out, you go, oh, I could put that together, I could do that, I can mix this, and ha-ha, voila. You have some new, beautiful recipe. Abundance is seeing the value in what you already have. And in that focus, in that energy and gratitude that you put into it, it begins to magnify. They say what we focus on is what we attract, and that's not just from a metaphysical standpoint, but literally the psychology of how our minds work. Everything in our life, all of our reality is based off of what we're filtering in our mind's eye and our senses, right? What each of you is seeing and hearing and experiencing in this moment is drastically different from one another because you're filtering different things. Some of you are hearing different words. Some of you are seeing something different. Some of you are feeling different. Those filters are based, again, on our conditioning, our stories, and the meanings that we've given them. And so if we know that, then we also know that the reason why when we focus on something, that's what persists, that's what comes up, is because we bring it up into the forum of our conscious mind, and then all of a sudden that's what we're looking for. And so then we start to see it. In the same way, if we're constantly telling ourselves limiting thoughts, scarce thoughts, then we're constantly looking for validation of that. We will always make ourselves right. Just depends what story you're making right. Can I tell you guys a story? I'm telling you, get rid of your stories, and I want to tell you a story. Years ago, I was in San Diego, California. That's where I used to live. And I'd been hired and invited to go out and do these workshops in Utah. And then they were flying me back and forth. And after one of these workshops, I was coming into the airport in Utah to come back to San Diego. And I was slotted to give the opening meditation for a festival. And there was 10,000 people waiting for me to lead them in meditation. And it had to happen at 10 a.m. My flight was at like 7:30 or something. And I stroll into the airport, kind of in my casual way. I'm not normally stressed when it comes to travel. And I didn't know it, but my watch hadn't updated the time zone when I'd gone. And so here I was strolling in, relaxed, and I was about 40 minutes late. And I get to the counter and I say, yeah, I need to check in for my flight. He goes, sir, I'm sorry, you've missed your flight. Now, mind you, this workshop I was doing in Utah was all about, finding belief, abundance, manifestation, ideas of, really acknowledging what's provided as long as that's what you stay focused on. And so I'm standing there, that's interesting. You're sure? And he goes, sir, it's in the air. Like, it's gone. It's not that you can't get to the gate. It's gone. Okay. And I just stood there. And the guy's looking at me and goes, can I help you with something else? I think so. I'm just waiting for it. He goes, well, I can book you on another flight. Soonest we have is 3 p.m. to later today. You go, it's not going to work. I have to be in San Diego by 10. I'm leading a meditation for 10,000 people. And he looks at me and goes, you're what? Why aren't you stressed? You just missed your flight. You're not making it. I said, no, I am. I just don't know how yet. But I am. So how are we going to do this? And I sat there for probably like 5 minutes, and he's looking at me, and occasionally go back to typing some things and doing his work. And he's going, sir, there's nothing I can, well, hold on. Type something. He goes, okay, I've just booked you on our sister airline. Normally we would charge a fee for that, but I just want to see you get there. Go. When we really wait in literally the expectation of what it is that we're focused on, it finds a way of presenting itself, because everything, I truly believe everything is already available. That's the true idea of abundance. It's to realize that everything, every possible experience, which, by the way, everything that we're looking for, whether it's in possessions of tangible goods or it's experiences, what we're really looking for is a feeling. We're looking to have a feeling from it. The feeling with lots of money might be freedom. The feeling from love is comfort and connection. All these things. We're looking for a feeling. Well, isn't that something you can give to yourself right now? It's only because you've given the power over to some other object, influence, or external resource as the permission for you to feel that. But then even once you get that thing, let's say it's with money. You finally get money. Who now gives you the permission to feel free and happy? If not you. But there's just a belief, a story, that you needed the money in order to give yourself the permission.
This is inspiring to look at a work of art and never had that feeling come up before. I know I can generate that feeling of awe and love, and being in the presence of a beautiful artwork or a view can really inspire that.
And you're saying you haven't had that feeling, or?
For example, I've never had such a feeling before. Mm-hmm. New feelings can come out when I see beautiful artwork or be in the vicinity of a beautiful house, for example, or something. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Are you asking, so where does that feeling I didn't even know I had come from if it's my choice?
Yeah, that's exactly what. Thanks.
Yeah. Just because you're not aware of it doesn't mean that you don't have it. How many qualities, how many things do you believe that you don't have yet in order to achieve the dreams that you have? There's probably something for all of us. There's these doubts, there's these ideas. Oh, I need to learn more, I need to do more, I need to go to more workshops, whatever it is. But the truth is, you have the power to give yourself permission all the time. Right? And so just because you're not aware of what you hold within you, doesn't mean that it's not there, or that it's not still also your choice to have it. It's actually one of the most powerful things that you can do is, it's modeling instead of imitating, or modeling instead of trying to compete with people. And so you look at a trait, a characteristic that you see in another that inspires you, and you simply, again, with that curious expectation, you go, oh, where is that in me? I know it's there. I just haven't become aware of it yet. Another more practical way to put this is, do you know anybody who can wiggle their ears? There's people, right, that can wiggle their ears, and can you do it? Yeah, a little bit, right? Or they can flare their nostrils, right? They go, right? Yeah, so you can do that. Now, there's other people that they'll see you do that, and they'll be like, how do you, I can't even find one more. I don't know how you're doing that, right? You just aren't aware of it, but everybody's capable of it. And so it's finding the muscle, finding the belief. And then as you focus on that, then that starts to rise up in you as an expression. There's a tricky thing that I think we confuse with things like manifestation, right? Law of attraction. There's an idea that you're creating or bringing in the stuff, right? That by your actions, by your behavior, by your thoughts, that you make yourself worthy of something to come in, and then we're kind of still in the same trap that we were before. I believe, especially you even look at the word manifest. Manifest it's not to create, it's not to attract, but rather manifest is literally translated as, it's like the inventory list of a cargo ship. That's where the original word comes from. The manifest. It's saying, this is what's on the ship. This is what's already here. So you can be aware. That's what manifestation is. It's to become aware of what's already here. And so this manifest is like a vending machine of life, right? You just have to become aware and clear about what you want. And then, as you were saying, like the good story is more the clarity. It's your clarity. You're still not making up something. You're just becoming clear about what you want to focus on. Everything is possible. You're becoming clear about what you want to focus on. See, stories normally aren't actually focusing on something. They're masking something. And so you become really clear about what you want. You put a little investment in. That's the coin that you drop into the machine. Maybe it's your time, your energy, your attention. And you press the button. That's the action, and boom, it starts to come out. Now, if you still have some limiting beliefs that say, I don't deserve this, I don't actually get to have this, well, then it only comes out halfway, and then it teases you. We're the only ones that get in our own way. So we come back to what I was sharing at the beginning. We get to let the fire burn out. Let the logs burn their way through the stories. Don't try to replace them with something, but rather let the clarity emerge. Recently in Bali, I was giving some heart talks, and a theme that kept coming up was this in-between space. The space where, maybe you've just left something that was solid and had some good stability for you, and you left that to pursue your passions. But you don't exactly know what your next step is, and so you're in that in-between. Or any kind of transition that happens in life, and a lot of people come into Bali or in transitions. And they're there and they're going, but I don't know what the next thing is, and they're super stressed. And the idea is that it's not okay to be in the in-between. But it's very okay. It's very okay to be in the restful space of waiting upon. Not waiting for, but waiting upon. There's a difference. You see, waiting upon is with curiosity. Waiting for is with impatience. You don't believe you're fulfilled, happy, or clear until you've gotten there. But most of the time, the journey is not clear from the beginning. It becomes clear on the way. And so can you stand in that still point in between with just curiosity and wait for something to emerge onto the canvas rather than trying to paint the story? And a lot of times we have a story that's already there and we just paint over it. And we keep doing that, painting over, painting over, painting over. And then when we relax, we start to calm down, the story that we painted, maybe it starts to dry a little and crack, and then the other story, those old patterns, the things that you thought you got rid of, they start to surface again, and you go, I don't get it. I dealt with that years ago. Why is that still there? And you just covered it up with another story. And then the mind kind of knows that if you relax, all that old stuff you didn't really let go of will come back through, and so you never relax. You stay stressed, running, becoming, doing, for fear that the identities that you don't like or that you believe you've evolved from will come back chasing you. Just in general, that your past will chase you. I want you to hear that thought for a moment, because it's a little silly, isn't it? We are constantly running because we're afraid that our past is going to catch up to us. What do I mean by that? Have you ever been in a relationship and then you got out of that one and you enter a new one, but all the things you were afraid about that happened in the last one, you start to project on the new one? I think we're all guilty of that at some point. That's you running from your past. You may not realize it, but the majority of people are running from their past. It's called avoidance. If I ask you right now, what is it that you want in life? You might have some ideas, but the majority of people, when they are asked that question, their response is, well, I don't want to feel stuck anymore. I don't want this to be happening. I don't want that person in my life anymore. Or I don't want to be struggling. I don't want to be poor. I don't want. They're saying what they're avoiding. I don't want to be stressed anymore. And then because I'll ask this to my coaching clients all the time. No, that's what you don't want. What do you want? And maybe a thought will come up to their heads, like the thing they really want. And then they stop themselves because they go, but I can't have that yet. I see another way that people do it when they do these manifestation boards and all these visions and affirmations to try to bring something in. And all of a sudden it shows up. And they're like, whoa, that was too fast. I wasn't ready yet. I was still busy trying to get it, but not ready to receive it. We somehow have a story that we don't get to have what we want. And this is where this idea of permission comes in again. By the way, almost everything that I ever talk about, whether it's in my books, my coaching, my talks, I always bring in three main concepts: acceptance, permission, and expression. It spells ape, so it's very easy to remember. Acceptance, permission, expression. This permission part is so important because we get in our way so much. You wouldn't think if somebody told you, you have to give yourself permission to do that. You need to get permission to do that. Or things like that. You'd probably be like, I don't need permission to do that, but I can't do that. Right? You've taken your own permission away. It's not that some external force has to do it. You get to give yourself permission. Beyond and regardless of any excuses or justifications you've been stopping yourself from having what you want. There's a great business tactic that I was taught once where if you want to do something, whether it's in business or in your personal life, it's a growth, right? But you need a certain resource in order to get to the next level. Most people will stop and they'll just spend the majority of their time trying to get that resource. Maybe you want to open up a business, a center like this, and you think, oh, I can't until I have enough money. And so then you spend a lot of time working, trying to create money before you can do it. Well, the technique that was taught to me was, a coach said, rather than focusing on what the resource is, because that's the how, ask yourself, okay, what would be the next step if I had the resource already? And then go just start doing the next step. That's permission. You just give yourself permission to go for it. And the magical thing happens. The resources show up. Because again, what are you focused on? You're focused on the next step. And the brain is an amazing function. It goes, oh, that's where you're going? Okay, you'll need this. Here you go. Here's how you get this then. If you're focused on, oh, I need to get this in order to get there, then the brain will be like, okay, what's in between those two? Well, you need to do this then to get that. You'll get more work. But you won't make more money. Easiest way to not just exemplify, but to prove this point. If you ever ride a motorbike or a motorcycle, and you're on a narrow path, this happens a lot in Bali. Same with a bicycle. You could probably do that with a bicycle too. If you're going along and you look directly down right in front of your wheel, you're going to get really wobbly. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to react fast enough or respond fast enough. But if you look forward a little bit, now you don't exactly know what's right under your wheel, you don't know what's there. You have to trust that what's in your present moment is meant for you, that it's there. It's okay. You were already prepared for it because you saw it, even maybe if you weren't conscious of it, you saw it coming. And so you're looking forward, and what happens is the brain literally fills in the gap. The same thing happens with how we manifest, how we create our life, our reality. We look forward just a little bit. But if you're constantly looking just right in front of you, that's called survival, not thriving. If you're just right in front of you, you're just doing enough to survive in every moment. But you take that leap and you go, that's where I want to get. Okay, great. Now you're going to start to have the things that lead you there show up. Again, an abundance mindset. As I said, a lot of times we'll invite something in and then it shows up and we're like, whoa, I don't know what to do with this. It's too soon. And I think what happens is it's not just the stories that we have and the resistance to us being ready for something. It's also just resistance in general. It's a no mindset. We've become protected. Right? So part of permission is about bringing down the protections. We became protected because we protect ourselves from failure. We protect ourselves from hurt. We protect ourselves from rejection. We protect ourselves from feeling like we've done harm to others. And that's when we think we're saying, oh, no, I did it to protect you. No, you know you didn't. You did it to still protect yourself from feeling like you did something bad. And so we're constantly protecting ourselves, and in that, we're bordering ourselves from all the possibility and opportunities around us. And so I say, rather than having a no mindset, shift to a yes mindset. And that doesn't mean you say yes to everything. Excuse me, it means that you say yes to the possibility. There's a big difference there. You don't say yes to everything, you just say yes to the possibility of it, and then you make a choice. And then it's an empowered choice. You see, if you said no before you ever knew what the opportunity was, you're missing a lot of things. But if you say, yes, tell me more. Show me what this opportunity is. Present it to me. Let me see it. Now you can make an informed choice. I share this all the time with my clients when they say they want to go do something, and the no mindset almost always with a lot of people is money. They go, oh, I can't do it. I don't have enough money. I say, and if money wasn't the thing, like, make it a yes mindset. Yes to the possibility. What else is possible? And there's so many other ways that you can do things. Exchanges, work for it. I don't know. There's all sorts of different things. And the funny thing is, the moment you make that yes to the possibility, the resource shows up because you've given your mind the permission to find a different answer. They did a study a while back of a bunch of people that were asking the question, how could we get rid of all the prisons? I think it was in Australia. How could we get all the prisons done, like that we wouldn't need them anymore? And everybody said, it's not possible, like it's too big of an issue, too big of a problem, like it would take years and years and years to reform that, it's not going to happen. So it was no mindset. And then the person who was doing the test and the exam or this like kind of survey said, well, let's shift the question a little bit. Let's imagine it is possible, that we've already set out that we're going to do it, so how would we do it? And all of a sudden, everybody had these answers. All sorts of possible ways of doing it. You see, the greatest obstacle that we give ourselves is a no mindset, is that we resist before we even know what we're resisting. So we get to shift into this yes mindset, and that yes mindset immediately gives us an abundance. Because now we're not limited to just the few options that we protected within our walls, but we become connected and available to us all possibility, all potential. And then you start giving that permission for it to come in. Now, I said that I have these three pillars, right? Acceptance, permission, expression. Acceptance is actually the first one. It has to be, because before you've accepted something, you can't ever give permission for it to change. And the reason is this: if you're not accepting the reality of this moment, then you're telling yourself a story, and all your reactions, all the permissions, all the things, the resources, work, effort, everything you do is to try to fix your story, not your reality. It's to try to change your story, not where you're actually at. So acceptance isn't saying, oh, okay, I'm okay with it. No. If you're having trouble accepting it, it's because you're not okay with it. Acceptance, though, is recognizing the reality of it. It's really understanding, yes, this is what's happening. I'll give you an example. In the coaching one-on-one sessions that I do, I'll mix body work in with it. And so body work and energy work. And sometimes I'll be moving like a leg in a Thai massage kind of fashion. And I've lifted the leg up, and it's like this. And I'll say, it's okay if you can relax. They go, oh yeah, no, I'm relaxed. And I let go of the leg, and it's just still there. I don't think you're in your reality. A lot of us are in denial about what's really going on, especially in our bodies. And so we get to accept, we get to find where we're at, because that's the starting point. You see, if you're running a race, most of us have an idea of where the finish line is, because we say, I want to get here, here's my goal, here's the destination, the direction at least. But we never have the start point, because we haven't accepted it as it is. This is why I was a little iffy when you were saying, like, isn't it okay, though, just to make up a story to make it better or more interesting? You can do it if you're conscious of it. That way you still know where you're starting from, though. You must accept and recognize what the reality is first. Another way that I can say it is, imagine you go on Amazon. Has everybody here ever ordered something from Amazon? So you go on Amazon, you're looking for something, right? And you're scrolling through all the different items and products. Maybe you're looking for a personal development book, a self-help guide, self-discovery. It's called Who Are You by Rodolfo Young. It's right back there. And yeah, it's on Amazon too. So you find it, and you go, yes, that's exactly what I've been looking for. And so you hit purchase. And it goes to the billing page. Again, this is just an investment. It's your attention, it's your energy. Sometimes it's monetary. It's whatever investment you need to make. Most of us don't have an issue with that. You put that in, billing information. It's the third page that stumps everybody. Shipping address. Here you have found the very resource that you want, everything you've been looking for, the thing that's going to help you move to the next step, but you don't know where to send it because you haven't accepted where you're at. Acceptance is your home address. It tells you and every other resource where to find you so that you can be supported. Another really easy way we can look at this in a practical way that a lot of us do. Emotionally, we hide our emotions, don't we? We don't fully express them because we think sometimes it's inconvenient or inappropriate or other things, or we don't want to be seen that way. And yet the very thing, the beacon to your home address, because remember, the acceptance is to recognize the reality. You're emotional. You have something in you. That's the reality. You must accept it, and in accepting it, then you bring the protections down, the permission comes up, all of a sudden you're seen in your expression of emotion. And what happens then? You're supported normally. It's very rare that somebody breaks down in emotion, at least let's call it sadness or grief, and they're not supported, they're not looked at and accepted in where they're at, you're not going to be argued with that. Now you might say, well, what about anger? Oh, that's a tricky one. Because anger comes above sadness. You see, what happens is we normally have fear, and then we have despair, and then from despair we think we're losing something, and so we get sad about it. And then because we don't think we can say anything about the sadness and we have no control over it, we get angry. I believe anger comes from a sense of helplessness, because we haven't realized that it's okay to be helpless sometimes. That's how you ask for support, is only when you're helpless. We don't want to be that, though. You have to let that story go. So we have this acceptance, home base, permission, bringing the walls down. And as you do that, old son, you don't have to think of your expression anymore. You don't have to figure out, how do I engage in conversation about these things? It shows up. You get seen. You get seen. You know, in all of the work that I've done and with people that I've worked with and teachers that I've worked with, in the end, one of the fundamental human desires is to be seen, but seen authentically, sincerely, and fully, and then accepted in that. And yet we put up all these stories to be seen in a different light because we're afraid that what people might see isn't going to be enough. I'm going to say something that might seem a bit contradictory. The truth is, in those moments you aren't enough. Not because who you are isn't enough, but because you divided yourself into many different things. You see, at some age, something happened, you started to create the wall, the protections. And you had to put a little bit of your own energy into it, right? You had to invest into that wall. And then you have to invest in the maintenance of it. And so at first, it's maybe just a little bit of a line in the sand. And then maybe it's a little brick wall. And then maybe it's a fence. And then you keep adding and adding and adding until you have this moat, an electric fence, a ditch, the dragons are there. Like, you put in all sorts of things to try to protect yourself. And then when you look back at the thing that you have left that you're protecting, because mind you, every single one of those defenses took a little piece of you. And you look back, there's only like 10% left. And you go, oh, I'm not enough. You're divided. And what's worse is, what do you think that 10% is? What's the thing that you push down the furthest? The stuff that you don't like. The judgmental stuff. So now, not only are you saying I'm not enough, but you don't like that 10% that's in there. And yet you have all these protections to keep it safe. And so we start to bring the protections down by acknowledging that as the wall comes down, you come up. You show up. And here's the secret, the world's waiting for that. It's waiting for you to show up. And for as long as you have a wall up, the people will be trying to figure out what's behind the wall. And they might make up their own stories. Much better to just be clear about who you are. Show up in your authenticity. I used to have business cards that they said, authenticity is your most attractive quality. And it's because you can be trusted when you're fully authentic. When you put a mask on, or you put a story on, or you put, a distortion of what's really going on for you, even if it's innocent, like meaning it's an emotion that you don't want to show. You're trying to hide that. People feel something's not in alignment. And then they don't trust you. And then they make up their own story about why. That's more dangerous. And so the idea in expression is to be authentic in it, sincere in it, vulnerable in it. Not just because then you get to be seen clearly and authentically, but one, you're trusted, and two, in you expressing fully, you give permission for others to do the same. Take notice the next time you're hanging out with somebody that you know absolutely would never judge you. And notice your own physical energy. You're probably very relaxed. And then go and meet with somebody that, even if they've never judged you, but you might think they could. Maybe because they have more than you, or because they're more successful, I don't know. And then notice what your physical energy is like, and it's probably tense. You see, the permission that you get to give by being fully authentic gives others the same permission. Those people that aren't judging you, it's because they're not judging themselves. They're just being themselves. You might even have a friend that's just, a complete jerk. But they own it. They're like, yeah, I'm a jerk. Deal with it. And you love them because they're authentic. They're in alignment. There's no candy coating, no sugar, nothing that's hiding what's real. There's a power in that. So we start with acceptance. Find your home base. You drop into permission by releasing the protections, which, by the way, we come back to the very beginning. Those protections are your stories. Your stories are how you protect yourself. And at some points in your life, they were necessary in that moment. And then they immediately became unnecessary. The problem is we forget to bring down the walls. And then all of a sudden, with the walls gone, you're being seen and you're expressing. All of this, I think, touches on what you were asking about. Is it okay if sometimes in these talks I like to do what I call laser coaching. Is it okay if I dive in a little with you?
Yeah.
It might get a little vulnerable.
Sure.
Okay. What's your reaction to these two scenarios? Somebody presents you with a cake.
With what cake?
With a cake. Do you like cake?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite cake?
Let's call it a cherry cake. Right?
Okay.
It's Black Forest cake.
Okay. Black Forest cake. So, you have this Black Forest cake. They present it to you and they say, have as much as you like. Wonderful, right? Oh, okay. You will have 1 or 2 bites, right? Different scenario now. Somebody presents you with this Black Forest cake and says, you can't have any of it. None. Which scenario creates more desire?
Yes.
The more we resist something, the more we deny it, the more we say, no, I can't have this, I can't be this way, the stronger it becomes. Right? And that's for all sorts of traits. And it's a very interesting thing, because when we look into some of the shadow parts of ourselves, where we're saying, no, that's not okay for me to be that way, to think that way, to do this, it becomes stronger, and our unconscious mind has more power than our conscious mind. And so it finds its way into our lives, right? But if it's just something that's allowed, you give it permission, it doesn't mean you're going to go do it. Remember, yes mindset, meaning yes to the possibility. And all of a sudden, it actually diffuses the energy and the charge in it. And so you might suddenly say, yes, it could be possible that I would go and live this totally different life. I could see myself do that. Instead of denying, instead of judging it, you just look at it and you go, yes, that's a possibility for me. And I'm willing to bet that immediately the desire to do it will dissipate. It won't be so strong. But there's another piece to it, and it's what you said at the last bit there. You said, then I wouldn't be such a boring man or a normal person. So where's the real motivation coming from?
Is it because I feel my life is boring? Or?
You may not be satisfied with where you're at and what you're doing. And then that, again, comes back to what are the protections? Where is your energy invested? And it might be in a role that you think you have to play. There's this thing between have to and want to that's super important. Necessity and desire, right? We attribute almost everything in our lives, we talk to it as if it's a necessity. I need money. No, you don't. It's just a piece of paper. It doesn't do anything for you. Can you eat it? It doesn't sustain your life. It doesn't help you breathe. You don't need it. You want it. There's a difference because you believe it has value for something else. I need that person. No, you don't. You just want validation, recognition from that person. You want to feel loved. That's different. we create all these needs. Now, I'm going to give you the definition. A need is something that is required for your survival. So, unless it actually is life or death, in that moment, you don't need it. And when it is life or death in that moment, you don't sit there talking about it. You don't sit talking to people and be like, yeah, I really need this. I'm not going to do it yet because I'm not ready to really put the effort, but, I really need it. No, if it's the life or death, you do it immediately, right? Which means that the majority of things are actually a want. And if you can start to see that it's a want, now you have a little more power in it because you go, oh, that's something I want. And if I don't have it, it's okay too. I survive. I'm not dead. And in that's where the yes mindset comes in. You can want these other things. But the part that makes you feel like you need it and creates that stronger desire is because you believe, or you may have started a story that says, I'm not enough without that, so I need it. And so we start to dissolve the story. You are enough. It's just that part of you is in the desire that you keep saying no to, so then it goes back and forth. So yes mindset, just yes to the possibility. You don't have to go creating crimes and things. But yes to the possibility that it could be okay. Simpler way of saying it. I remember I was reading a book called The Dark Side of Light Workers or something like that. It's Debbie Ford. Beautiful book. And it's all about shadow work. And one of the exercises said, pick something that you recognize in yourself that you judge and you don't want, and just really accept that that's a possibility for you, that's something. So it's like, okay, sometimes I can be selfish. Yeah, I'm selfish sometimes. Okay. So I thought, I did it. Dealt with that one. 2 days later, it was actually with cake. I didn't want to share a cake with somebody. And they're like, well, that's pretty selfish. I'm like, no, I'm not selfish anymore. I dealt with it. It doesn't work that way. We have to accept that it's a quality that is one of many. See, we tend to identify ourselves and we pigeonhole as if it's the one thing. Whatever, it's almost like, the roulette wheel in a casino. Wherever the ball falls is the value. Well, all the values are possible when the ball is rolling and spinning. But we tend to think every time that we're in one thing, oh, right now I'm really upset, my life's not going so well, I'm not succeeding in the things that I want, that's all it will ever be. And now you're identified in that. And you start to act from there. Whereas you just give it a spin. All of a sudden you have the possibility again. That's the yes mentality. And so you start to notice that every trait, every possibility, every characteristic, every behavior, everything is possible for you and is you. Which means that when selfishness comes up, or maybe it's these things that you're calling dark, right? Those are part of you. They're not all of you, though. And the fear is that, oh, what if I'm a bad person? See, you just made it all of you. It's not who you are. It's a part of you. In that same way, when we're looking back and we're saying, oh, I'm not enough, you're just looking at a part of you. You have to look at the whole self. And then you're always enough. Yeah. So that's the first half of it. I'm hearing it in what you're sharing. You're trying to compensate for a judgment you've made of yourself. You're looking for thrills, for adrenaline rushes, because you're not happy with who you are. And that's all a story. Like, who you are is just what you're seeing as part of who you are. It's fine. Go do these thrill-seeking things, but don't do it for that reason. That's a reaction, and it comes back to what I was sharing earlier. You're avoiding who you are instead of being who you want to be. See, there's a big difference there, right? If you were going and doing these little things of crime or becoming a spy, for instance, because you wanted to, because you're like, God, that'd be great. That'd be so much fun. Great, go do it. But if you're doing it because you believe you're not enough or you're boring, that's avoidance. It's a very different thing, and you will never be satisfied. Just something to ponder.
Can you share with us your idea
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's with a distortion of what the law of karma is, like what karma means. So karma is cause and effect. That's all it means. But somehow in the kind of spiritual philosophies and religious traditions, it's morphed into this: you do something and you're either rewarded or punished. And that's not really the case. The reward or punishment happens automatic and it's not delayed. So, let's say you do something. Let's say you get on the train without the ticket, but you actually feel guilty about it. Right? You may not, because you're getting a throw. But you feel guilty about it. That guilt is the effect. That was the immediate thing. Or you just feel stressed about it. Or, as you even just brought up here, you might do that stuff and you might not feel guilty, but you're still feeling stressed about, oh, there's this part of me that I want to express that maybe I shouldn't, and this and that. All of that misery and suffering from, battling that, that's the effect. So cause effect, it happens immediately. In these ways that I think you're saying, like maybe you trespass on sacred grounds or something, and now you're going to have this happen to you. The effect is based off your story, the meaning you gave it.
That's why I'm like, because I read online, and I guess I just did just amongst us an ayahuasca ceremony for the first time, and it was very interesting. I won't go too much into that, except it affirmed a lot of like positive feelings that I already have, and gave some insights that I was ready to receive. But then I read online that sometimes it involves, or it wasn't actually meant for everyone. It was meant initially for seekers of like medicine women and men underwent initiation, and then they would then coach or heal people in their community, and that the mother would or the grandmother would, and so in a way I got a bit worried because this article wrote about, were you in a place where you're not ready for, and I believe my intentions were pure, but a part of me is like, a thought came up, and then that's my story now, and I know I recognize it, but I guess I'm a bit worried, like in what way am I going to have to pay back?
It has only as much power as you give it as a story. It's beautiful you recognize that it is your story. That's the only power that it has, and that's the cause effect. If you're believing a story, you're going to have the effect. Another way this comes up quite often is with energy workers or even body workers. I remember when I was doing all my training, we were constantly being told, okay, well, if you're going to do this, you need to be really careful and put like a blue egg shield around you and all these things. And I'm not making fun of that, but it's a story. And the more effort you put into resisting the fact that you believe somebody else's energy could hurt you, is the more you're validating that it can hurt you. Whereas my story in it is energy is energy. If in them it was illness, in me it's moving, and I can choose what I do with it. But if I believe, the cancer that's in them, if I bring it out, then it's a cancer energy, and I'm in the story of cancer, then I'm going to get cancer. Right? Exactly. It's the story that you're sticking to. And so we get to learn how to let go of the stories, or at least be conscious of them, and then choose wisely.
Thank you so much for that. I think it helps. However, I guess there'll always be some things that we don't quite understand, and it's best to just respect it also. Do you know what I mean? There are a lot of wisdom and power in deep lineages that I don't pretend that I can understand. I just understand at my level the information given. That's, I guess, what I was fearful about.
Yeah.
And can that hurt?
I don't think ignorance can hurt. It's there's a difference between ignorance and disrespect, right? If you don't know that, well, here's another way to put that. Have you ever had the scenario where you realized or you found out that something you had been doing was hurting somebody? And a lot of people, when they find that out, they judge themselves. They go, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing that. Why would you judge yourself? You didn't know. Now, judge yourself if you keep doing it, but if you didn't know, there's no reason to worry. Like, you remedy the situation as soon as you're aware of it. Same with that. That's why I say ignorance is not something that you're going to be punished for. That's, you didn't know. And in the time you don't know, you don't know. But as soon as you know, it's different. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody.